Want to watch football without the restrictions of blackouts or cable? Check out expressvpn.com to help you get access to all the live games. Sign up today using the link in the description to get 3 free months. Go to Bolt fam, it's the director. Chargers fans, you know it's been unicorns and butterflies and in fairy tale land for the Chargers fans and its community the past couple of weeks. Of course, the Jim Harbaugh news has everybody super excited. The coaching hires have been very solid. I think outside of Greg Roman, everyone's gotten everyone that they've wanted. Even Greg Roman, I think a lot of us are starting to come around to as a pretty solid hire for Justin Herbert in the future. Shane Day just came back when recording this video. That's very exciting news right there. It's been kind of cloud nine sort of status if you're a Chargers fan, which brings me to a subject that maybe not a lot of us want to talk about right now, a subject that's kind of been one of those bummer topics that's been pushed to the foreground of our attention as Chargers fans. Some people are super about this, and I totally get it. I think, there's a quote by Kylo Ren in Star Wars, The Last Jedi, let the past die, kill it if you have to. Yes, I'm a Star Wars fan. And that's kind of the mentality a lot of Chargers fans are adopting right now. Of course, we're trying to move on from the Brandon Staley era, bring in Jim Harbaugh, the new Michigan/Baltimore/Chargers hybrid super team of the future. I understand that. Maybe part of that conversation is going to be moving on from two of the best players on this roster, and Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack. And honestly, guys, I'm hearing a lot of chatter. I'm hearing a lot of talk about the Chargers moving on from one, if not both of these guys. Of course, we don't know if anything's confirmed. It's all rumors. It's rumors. Rumors going to be in the title for a reason here, but it's something that's been heavily speculated and one that I honestly think is going to happen. I do. If I had to put money down on something happening this offseason that maybe is not my favorite, this would be one of those things. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about this. Some of the rumors that we're hearing right now, as well as how I think this is going to go down. Do the Chargers trade Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa, both? Do we end up cutting one or the other? What's going to happen after that? Who's the head honcho at edge, et cetera, et cetera? Who are we drafting or signing in order to, supplement some of this talent? We're going to go over all that in today's video. Before we do, shout out to the sponsor, of course, our favorite human beings on the planet that is Earth, Underdog Fantasy. If you guys want to get in on the action, use code DIRECTOR to match your deposit or your first deposit up to $100 and get in before the last opportunity to play this wonderful thing we know as fantasy football is over, at least in the NFL. With this Patrick Mahomes special for you newbies. I don't know if these guys are going to be coming in and doing stuff for the new spring league that's been going to be launching with The Rock and all those guys this upcoming spring. But till then, this is the last opportunity I have, at least in my mind. They'd be so sick if they did spring football. Either way, get in while you can. Super Bowl is coming up this upcoming Sunday. Should be a very fun one. Again, use code DIRECTOR to get in on that. Before we do kick things off, hit us up with the like and sub. If you do enjoy this Chargers content, we're getting close to 50K. Can you believe that? The small amount of time you guys take, hit the like, sub, bell notification. Helps me out a lot. Let's get into this. Lights, camera, 50K. Action. Rumor, the Chargers may be moving on from Khalil Mack and or Joey Bosa this upcoming offseason. Now, again, I let me have the actual tweet right here from me. It's yet to be confirmed, okay? I said digging into this, but it's a move a lot of us anticipated. A trade would save the Chargers roughly $23 million in cap. I could see a nice return in picks. Mack had a career year in 2023, okay? This is coming in from Chad Forbes. I think this is a reliable source. I don't know. I've been kind of digging into it. Don Cleve or whatever his name is also reposted this, and he's a little bit more reputable. So there is some, means or grounds to think that this could be a reliable source. If not, though, take it with a grain of salt, but also realize that this is a move that a lot of us are anticipating. Maybe some people, cashing in on the obvious, but, a lot of the times there's a foundation, a spark of origin that does mean, hold some water here. That does mean that this could actually end up happening. Of course, we're also not just talking about Khalil Mack, but also Joey Bosa, who was also reported by the same account here. Believe the NFL that the Chargers will listen on Joey Bosa in terms of trades, who turns 29 in July, due $25.3 million in 2024. Played just 14 games the past 2 seasons. combined. Okay, so there's a lot to talk about here, and of course, we did speculate, I think, more on the ends of Khalil Mack to, the closing of this last season. We talked a lot about the possibility of all of this going down, and quite honestly, it does feel like something's coming, and it breaks my heart a little bit, because if you guys know me, right, I'm a big Joey Bosa fan, and of course Khalil Mack was one of the greatest moves that this franchise has made in a long time. Probably will go down in history as one of the best trades that we could have made. Of course, Khalil Mack goes out and have a monster season, et cetera, et cetera. So this is pretty hard for me to talk about, man. I'm a big fan of both of these players. Went out and got me a Mack jersey the day we found out about the signing. I've been a huge Joey Bosa fan since he was drafted. So the thought of parting with one of these guys, if not both, really does hurt me in my soul a little bit, but we're going to talk about it anyway, because again, it is something that is likely to happen, and something that I think the Chargers and its fans need to brace themselves for this offseason, because of course, let's take a look at the money a little bit. Actually, let's go ahead and skip over here real quick, okay? The money, okay? I hate the money. It's a situation that the Chargers are monitoring, I'm sure, very closely, a situation that Chargers fans are very aware of, a situation that keeps getting thrown in my face, like, the director, we don't have any money. We can't do anything. We don't have any money. I promise you guys, by the end of this offseason, we're going to have money, okay? The Chargers, there's no way that they start ushering in a new era with Jim Harbaugh, a new staff, whole new systems being put in place. There's no way they go through that transition without at least a little bit of wiggle room to bring in personnel and players that match that sort of vision, okay? If the Chargers were willing to go in and figure things out in terms of personnel, I should say even, coaching hires and stuff like that, they will do the same thing in terms of players, okay? But in order to do that, like the great Kyle Wren said, let the past die, kill it if you have to. We're going to have to move on from some big names. Now, there's a couple of guys I do think are immune to this, guys that have been already mentioned by, Coach Harbaugh and his vision for the future. Or I should say Keenan Allen, I don't think is going anywhere, even though he's a little bit older. He's been specifically labeled as a guy that, Coach Harbaugh is going to be very happy to coach this season. Derwin James has been, mentioned multiple times. There's guys in here I do think that, even though they are a little bit older, or contract situation, whatever, that they're safe. The guys that I do think have a little bit more concern around them are going to be guys like Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa, Corey Linsley, Eric Kendricks, et cetera. And it is because of the cap situation. All right, $45 million over the cap is definitely not a situation that you want to be in. That kind of blows. But also, at the end of the day, I do have to point out that this is being maybe blown out of proportion a little bit in terms of the Chargers are in desperate need of cap space, and, there's no way they're going to crawl themselves out of this hole. Let's be honest here, guys. 2-3 moves, maybe, right? We'll get the Chargers under the cap again, and there's going to be more than that. I promise you guys, and it might shock some people to see me say this or even think about this happening. The Chargers are going to move a lot of pieces this offseason. There's going to be a lot of guys that don't make the cut. And sometimes it's a lack of, discipline, a lack of talent, a lack of this, that, fit, whatever. But the fact of the matter is we are bringing in a whole new system in Los Angeles. Like the coaching, the defense, the offense, everything's about to change. We're about to go from a pass-first offense to a run-first offense. We're about to go from, multiple defense or whatever you want to kind of hybrid defense to more of like a 4-2-5 defense. Very hard-nosed, physical defense. In order to do that, you're going to have to move some pieces around. Sure, there's some great foundational pieces here, but a lot of guys may not make the cut. Now, of course, off the bat, there's a couple of guys that kind of help your money situation a little bit. Unfortunately, and I really wish this wasn't the case. I wish that we had Corey Linsley next season, but right now it sounds like he's not going to return. His retirement is going to be treated more or less like a cut, okay? So right there, boom, there's a lot of money. I fully expect the Chargers to move on from Mike Williams. If you had to choose between one or two of these wide receivers to keep, I think Keenan Allen is going to end up being the one safe. And Mike Williams is owed a crap ton of money. I think he may end up being cut. Okay, so right there, the Chargers go from $45 million over the cap to just 16. And then finally enter in the rumors of the Chargers parting ways with one, if not both, of the pass rushers. Okay, you do either one of these, you're definitely going to be hitting your cap, quota or whatever, and have extra money to go spend on other free agents, okay? And that's what I'm saying. A couple of moves, the Chargers are good money-wise, and it's not just moves that you're making because of the money, it's also moves because you're trying to build a new system, a new vision of the Chargers under the Coach Harbaugh era, okay? With that being said, we're going to jump into the situation here a little bit, all right? The Chargers are moving on from an edge rusher, in my opinion. There is a world where we can maybe keep both with a lot of, maneuvering of the cap, which I hope ends up being the case, if I'm being quite honest. But it just feels like the right move for this team is to keep one, hopefully, maybe even move on from both. Who knows what the situation is going to call for. And now the rumors are starting to move in that due to the money, due to this change of coaching and change of leadership, that one, if not both these guys, will be moved on from. And it's something that, I think it's something we all have to very closely monitor. So to begin that conversation, we're going to start off with Khalil Mack, who's been the guy that I've labeled as the likely trade player the last year or so, okay? And as a matter of fact, if you asked me this time last year, say the offseason last year, I would have told you, hey, man, Khalil Mack, I'm excited to see what he does this season. Maybe a little bit of a letdown his first year with the Chargers, but I'm hoping to get a lot of production in this year with Khalil Mack, because after that, it feels like Khalil's probably not going to be with the team because of the money situation. And at that time, I was thinking the Chargers might have to cut him. Well, Khalil had to go out there and do something crazy, not just to, help us out in terms of maybe trade value, but also break my heart in terms of maybe we do have to move on from this guy that just had a monster season. And that's exactly what he did. He went and had a career year, which if you're a Chargers fan, or heck, if you're a Khalil Mack fan, I don't know if any of us saw that coming. Khalil Mack, one of the legendary edge rushers to ever play the sport, just had his best season at age 32 with the Los Angeles Chargers. And that did a couple of things. One, it put him in consideration to stay. It really did. Even though Khalil Mack's numbers are ridiculous in terms of cap, maybe there's a world where Jim Harbaugh comes in here and says, hey, this dude earned it. This dude came out here, had 16, 17 sacks, one of the top pass rushers in the world. We're going to find a way to keep him around in LA. All right? I don't know how likely that is. Because the other thing that ended up happening, which is something that I'm sure our new general manager is going to be a big fan of, is he raised his value. Khalil Mack, in my opinion, is in no way, shape, or form a cut candidate anymore. Khalil Mack, if you move on from him, is a trade candidate. And quite a good one, if I do say so myself. I think Khalil Mack has played himself into a position where the Chargers could definitely capitalize on a nice pick return if they were to find the right partner. And there's already rumors flowing that we may have found a partner that's interested. Every team is going to be interested in some way, shape, or form. It just kind of comes down to who's willing to pay the most. And it's a position a lot of teams are willing to pay up the nose for. All right? But that's kind of the situation with Khalil Mack. We've always sort of, thought that it was going to happen this year. We just kind of had to see how everything played out. Now I'm kind of thinking, okay, $38 million cap hit. You'd be saving a massive almost $24 million. We'll say about $23 million to help in this cap crisis here. It just feels like the most appropriate move right now. Now, a lot of you guys will hear me say, hey, director, we're hearing that he's got some trade value. What are we talking? How do we sweeten the situation for the Chargers? If it's inevitable, right? If the Chargers are going to move on, we know it's happening. It comes out tomorrow morning like, the Chargers are going to be trading Khalil Mack. He's already been told out of respect. We're going to let him know ahead of time so he can maybe weigh in on what he wants to do, yada, yada, yada. But in the end, it's inevitable, right? Khalil Mack's getting cut. Let's say, hypothetically, that's the situation. What are we talking in terms of return? Well, not so long ago, there was a young team by the name of the Los Angeles Chargers that did just that. They went and traded for Khalil Mack, which at the time, Khalil being in around, age 31, age 30, produced a second-round pick for the Chicago Bears. All right? Not a bad return for the Bears, if I'm being honest. And it's because the Bears were in the same situation as we were in terms of cap, in terms of a lot of money owed to Khalil Mack. They kind of got the best of both worlds in that trade in terms of, okay, we moved a lot of money off the books as well as got a second-round pick in return for Khalil Mack. Not a bad move there. And, of course, the Chargers got a great deal in terms of production from Khalil Mack for the last couple of seasons. It kind of worked out there. Fast forward a couple of years, we have to really ask ourselves honestly, what are you willing to trade for Khalil Mack now after 2 more seasons added to his resume? Of course, he is 2 years older now. But we're also looking at the situation from the perspective of production, are we not? And Khalil Mack, in terms of production, was not the same player he is today as he was with the Chicago Bears when we last traded for him. When we traded for Khalil Mack, it was a second-round pick. Sure, he was 30 years old. There's a little bit more, tread on the tires. But he also wasn't coming off a career season. That's what he is coming off with the Chargers. 17 sacks, amazing season. turned back the clock, showed a lot of production, a lot of tread, and honestly, it's something that other teams are going to be foaming at the mouth to get on their team if they can. Because there are outliers at certain positions, right? There's your Von Millers, there's your Khalil Macks, your Justin Houstons. There's guys that, regardless of age, will produce at the edge position, and Khalil Mack should be considered one of them. Now, I'm not saying that is what he is, and that's what my beliefs are, and I'm going to push him on everybody. No, I'm just telling you guys what I think my perspective is going to be of the NFL and the playing field here. There's going to be a lot of teams interested in Khalil Mack, and there may be some teams that think, hey, dude, 32 years old, 33, whatever, I don't care. He's producing. He's coming off of a career season. He is worth what the Chargers paid for him, a second-round pick. I think being optimistic, and yes, I'm being optimistic in that projection, I think Khalil Mack is worth a second-round pick, specifically a late second-rounder. I think you would be able to find a trade partner for that price that's willing to take some money off the books, especially a team with hint, a young quarterback on contract, kind of helping their books and their money situation out right there, who would be willing to adopt the Khalil Mack contract. And that's the situation the Chargers were in, too. We had a rookie quarterback on that deal. Kind of all fits right there. So if you guys are kind of asking me, what's the situation in terms of return for Khalil Mack and trade value, I think at minimum, Chargers get a third-round pick. High, low, doesn't matter. I think that's what Khalil Mack is actually worth right now. What I think the NFL is going to pay in terms of a team that wants to outbid and get him on their team, I think it's going to be a late second-round pick. That's my prediction, okay? So I think third-round pick, you can convince me of a second-round pick if the situation presents itself, okay? Now let's talk about my guy. For those of you guys who used to watch my Madden channel, I'm going to say it one time only, okay? Oh my God, it's Joey Bosa. Man, I'm such a huge Joey Bosa fan. Every time Joey Bosa got a new card in Madden Ultimate Team, which I did some content of back in the day, I would make a pretty big deal out of it, make some special videos, go out and have an awesome time on defense in Madden, which is a hard thing to accomplish because I'm just such a big fan of Joey Bosa. I always have been. It was kind of a love-hate relationship at first, as a matter of fact, because I was so desperate to get Jalen Ramsey on this team. He was the guy I wanted it to, but Joey Bosa made it very difficult on me because I loved what he was going to be bringing out of college as well. Very, very excited when we drafted Joey Bosa, okay? And I think you can say I fell more in love with Joey Bosa on the Chargers after his rookie season, which of course was amazing. Joey Bosa. Tough conversation for me to have, but it's another one that we have to have because of the rumors, okay? If we go back here, Chad football or whatever, again, the belief around the NFL is the Chargers will listen on Joey Bosa. Of course, you can say that about anybody. We'll listen to offers. Maybe the right one doesn't come around, or maybe it's more of a tactic or whatever you want to call it. I think this is real. I think there's a couple of reasons for that. And I think the possibility of us moving on from Bosa is reasonable this offseason. I think Khalil Mack is more likely, but I think you could convince me that maybe Joey Bosa could end up being the guy, or both of them could be moved this offseason. Either way, a couple of arguments that I've been hearing out in the Chargers fandom as to why we should move Joey Bosa. If you ask the Chargers fans about Khalil Mack, it's the age, it's the contract. With Joey Bosa, it's a little bit different. And it hurts me to say because, yeah, in some ways I do agree with you guys. Joey Bosa has had a pretty rough injury history the past couple of seasons. Of course, what did that tweet say? Played 14 games the last 2 seasons. That's a big yikes. That's a big yikes. And you know what? It's not the first time we've seen that with Joey. He's had seasons where he goes down. We're all worried about his longevity. Then he comes back and he has an awesome season to follow up. This is the first season that he didn't do that. So right off the bat, injury is a bit of a concern. Now, I feel a little bit better going into this season because we do have one of the best strength and conditioning coaches in the world in Ben Herbert all of a sudden. So if you're trying to bank on, is Joey going to stay on the field more often than not? This is a good year to say, hey, man, he probably will stay on the field a little bit more than he has. Especially after recovering from a couple of bad seasons. I think he's due for a good one, right? But on the other hand, the other thing that Chargers fans are a little bit worried about is the fit in the Harbaugh culture, okay? I'm not going to lie to you guys and tell you that Joey Bosa is this perfect, halo around his head, perfect, example of a human being. Joey has had some moments this season. And again, I think it's just, you get caught up in the moment. Everybody does. They're all competitors. But we did see Joey lose it a couple of times. And it did cost us in terms of penalties. It did cost us in terms of locker room morale. It did cost us in a couple of different areas. We've seen him throw his helmet down. We've seen him, get ticked off and, draw flags. It's been a tough couple of years for Joey Bosa. And again, it's on him. He's got to be the bigger man or whatever. He's got to be under control of that stuff. But also, I feel like Brandon Staley was letting these guys off the hook a little bit too much, creating a passive sort of aura around his players. And maybe Joey did need a little bit more wrangling. He wasn't getting it. And again, it's on Joey. But it's one of those things I'm seeing from fans. Okay, they're like, well, maybe he doesn't fit the he's not a Harbaugh guy. He's not a Harbaugh guy. And you know what? You guys may end up being right. I don't know. Joey has been a little bit more on edge, okay? And it was a perfect pun that's in no way funny to me right now because of the situation, okay? But the situation goes beyond even that. Joey Bosa is in a situation financially that puts the Chargers in kind of a bind. Now, this will be the first year of a couple of seasons, actually, where he is going to be accounting for a large amount of cap. This season, $36 million, which is pretty absurd if you ask me. Even for some of the best edge rushers in the league, that's a lot of money. A lot of money. And then following that, a almost $33 million season in 2025. It's a lot. It really is. And my argument for the longest time when it comes to Joey Bosa or Khalil Mack, who's going to get moved? It's been, Khalil Mack's probably going to get moved because the money makes more sense. And it's still kind of the case right now. If the Chargers decide to cut Joey Bosa in 2024, we're going to be inquiring $22 million in cap, and dead money, I should say, and only getting $14 million in relief. Okay, so in layman's terms, we'd go $22 million in debt to Joey Bosa, while only getting $14 million back in total cap relief this season. Doesn't make a lot of sense financially, okay? Now, if we were to wait a year, or heck, if we were to trade him after the June 1st deadline, if you guys see this little button up here, if I change this from cut pre-June 1st to cut post-June 1st, it'll change that number from 14 to 22, right? So $14 million dead cap, $22 million in cap relief. Maybe you can convince me of that. And the same thing is said for a trade, right? If we traded him after June 1st, the money makes a lot more sense for this season. All right? That's actually a pretty big deal. And it's something that could come into factor a little bit later. Maybe the Chargers do trade Joey Bosa, but it's not something that affects this year's draft capital, if that makes sense. It could, and that could be a deciding factor in whether or not we do move him at all. But just keep that in mind. The post-June or pre-June date is a big deal when it comes to Joey Bosa and what we do with him, right? Now comes that X factor. Let's say the Chargers, like they said in that tweet, are listening to offers. Maybe we don't want to move Joey Bosa. Maybe Joey Bosa, for more reasons than just the financial reasons, is a player that we would rather keep. But we'll listen to offers, right? If the offer is sweet enough and it convinces us to move on from him a year earlier than we had planned, then maybe we'll field to those offers, right? And in those situations, if I'm going to take that much dead cap and only bring in so much relief, I'd have to have something in return in terms of cap or in terms of draft capital to sweeten the deal a little bit. And there's going to be teams out there that are willing to do that. I think there was a couple of rumors floating around out there for both Joey and Khalil. I don't remember the one for Joey, but it could be significant. I think in terms of return, Joey Bosa would actually return more value than a Khalil Mack. And if you guys remember, I just said Khalil Mack, at least to me, is worth a late second, early third round pick. Joey Bosa, to me, not just on name value, but certainly it does help, is a late first rounder. Early second rounder at the very worst. But I'm going to say late first rounder is a Joey Bosa trade that I would entertain. Okay? And that opens up a lot of possibilities for you. Again, it pains me to even be talking about this because I'm such a huge Joey Bosa fan, but it solves a couple of problems, right? If you want to keep Khalil Mack because he's proven to be a little bit more reliable, a little bit more productive, then trading Joey Bosa while also getting some, capital in return that's worth it makes the whole situation feel a little bit better. If you're looking to move on from both of those, older edge rushers, that draft capital makes me feel a little bit better because we could solve that issue and that position a little bit sooner in this year's draft if we had to, right? There's a couple different avenues as to why Joey Bosa being moved on this season is a good idea. Now, if it were me and I were determined to solve this position, and Joey Bosa, let's say he isn't a Harbaugh guy and he's not in their plans for 2024, what I would end up doing is if I don't get the right offer, if I don't get a first-round pick offer for Joey Bosa, I wait till after the draft. Because there's a lot of teams out there that feel like, oh, we're going to solve this edge position problem in the draft, no worries. Or in free agency, no worries. There's going to be a lot of teams that make it out the other side of that with no answer. They didn't get one. They missed out. And all of a sudden, that Joey Bosa, who's been floating around out there as a trade block guy, feels a little bit more attractive. Like, okay, maybe I'm willing to pay up for Joey because we're planning on getting an edge in the draft. We were planning on getting an edge in free agency. That didn't happen. I think it's time to look at a trade. And that's where I get a little bit more interested in trading Joey Bosa because I do think that without question, he would garner a first-round pick. It could come from a team that gives us a good shot at a higher position than what we would get this year, as well as the Chargers would be saving more money. Right? The Chargers, instead of saving, what was it, $15 million, 14, they'd be saving 22. And that is significant. It really is. And that's something that the Chargers could prepare for now. They could go out there and they could draft another edge position player. They could go out there and sign a veteran edge guy to plan for a late Joey Bosa trade. Okay? That's my vision for it, at least. So Khalil Mack, a guy that I think could be traded sooner, maybe before the draft to help with the money situation. Joey Bosa, more of a guy that I think could be traded after the fact and maybe even planned for a little bit ahead. Okay? Now, to help wrap up this video, a couple of things that I think back up my prediction of what I think is going to happen. Joe Ortiz in his first season, I think he's going to make some big moves, and I think one, if not both of these guys are part of that plan. All right. And again, I think there's a very high chance that the Chargers part ways with at least one of these guys. Right now, it does feel like both are on the table, but like I said before, Mack is the most likely move, at least to me. This would guarantee the Chargers get max trade value right now, as well as put a huge dent in the current cap situation. It feels like something Joe Ortiz would probably move on in his first season. He talks a lot about age. He talks a lot about value in those age, weighing these things out, balancing these things out. It just kind of feels like that's a sort of move that matches his play style, so to speak, the way that he does business. All right? So if I were to make a prediction, I would read the field in the Joe Ortiz era, it seems like that's something that would happen. But also don't be surprised if the Bolts still field offers for Bosa, right? Like I said, Joe Ortiz, he's going to be acquiring picks. And this is a guy that just doesn't think about this season. He's thinking about next season as well. So if Ortiz can go out there and get a second rounder, third rounder for this year from Khalil Mack, and then even after the draft say, okay, now I want a first rounder for next season, let's go ahead and get a head start on 2025, I think he would do it. I really think he would. And I think that he'd have a very intelligent way of pulling it off while also keeping the edge position somewhat strong and falling into what we call the comp pick formula. Okay? So again, I would guess that Bosa stays, but if the Chargers get an offer for a first-round pick, we could see the Bolts move on from both of these massive contracts, whether it be one before, one after the draft, or whatever. And this would serve, again, as a very bold move for Joe Ortiz's first season as a Los Angeles Chargers GM, but also could pay off in comp picks. Okay? We'll get to that in just a second. So what's the magic formula here? What's the magic formula that moves the Chargers in the direction of solving the money, figuring out who they want to edge rusher, and who's going to be complimenting Thule in the future? I think the magic formula here is something the Chargers kind of stumbled on the last couple of seasons. It's the two-star and a vet formula, or at least the vet formula. Okay? So think about it this way. We got Thule Tuipulotu, Bosa or Mack, either or, and then you throw in a vet. So you have three guys that you can rotate in, right? That's pretty nice. It reminds me of the Joey Bosa, Khalil Mack, Kyle Van Noy, and then most recently the Joey Bosa, Khalil Mack, Thule Tuipulotu. It feels like that formula is going to be working, and it's something that we kind of want to bank on. All right? If the Chargers move a massive contract off the books, it could introduce some wiggle room to still solve that issue without breaking the bank. And that's adding another vet, a one-year rental kind of guy. Guys like Zadarius Smith, Yannick Ngakoue, Baltimore Ravens defense sort of dudes. You could rent those guys on a one-season contract that doesn't break the bank. That also adds up to a comp pick later. Does that make sense? You could add guys like Leonard Floyd, Jadeveon Clowney. Awesome, cheap, rotational players likened to what the Chargers did with Kyle Van Noy. cheaper guys like Randy Gregory, Justin Houston, even Anthony Barr if they want to go more pass coverage upside. These are nice rentals. And it feels like something that Joe Ortiz would do to kick off this comp pick era, right? There's also a world where the Chargers even sign 2 vets on a cheap deal while we hunt down a starter via the draft in the future. So let's say the Chargers, they do trade Khalil Mack before the draft and then turn around and trade Joey Bosa after the June 1st deadline to maximize on dead cap or on cap relief. Maybe they need 2 guys. Well, you could sign 2 dudes. Imagine the Chargers, they have Tuli Tuipulotu, they have Jadeveon Clowney and Anthony Barr, right? And they're rotating those 3 guys. I think you're still going to find some pretty good success there because this position has proven to produce when you're using a formula like that. And this could position the Chargers for multiple comp picks each year while we search for a permanent star opposite Tuli Tuipulotu. Does this all make sense? Are you picking up what I'm putting down? The Chargers bring in older, productive veterans on 1 or 2 year deals so that when they walk, the Chargers can turn that into a 3rd, 4th, 5th round pick that starts the comp pick movement. Because this is a lifestyle that you guys are going to notice over the next couple of seasons. We're going to get 2, 3 extra picks every year because of this formula. Edge seems like a good position to do that in because there's a lot of vets out there that are going to go unsigned or very cheap because of their age, but it doesn't change how valuable that position is. And if you can find guys like Kyle Van Noy, if you can find guys like Justin Houston who are old but not obsolete, they not only solve your issue at edge this season, but also provide future picks in the form of compensatory picks. And that's just something that feels like Joe Ortiz would do. Now, my prediction here, if you guys want to know, Director, what do you think is going to happen with the whole Bosa and Mack situation? Here's what I think is going to happen, okay? My prediction is that the Chargers are going to move on from Khalil Mack this year. And if you're asking, well, what happens to Bosa? I think they could move on from him next year, or they could move on from him after the June 1st deadline, but I think it's more likely to happen next season. Okay, so my prediction is that the Chargers do move on from Mack this year. They capitalize on that trade value. They move that money off the books. Now, what do they get in return? I think the Chargers get a 3rd rounder for Mack. Maybe a late 2nd if we're lucky. But if we're trying to be realistic here, I think an early 3rd is still pretty nice. As a matter of fact, I'll actually change gears here a little bit because right now the rumors do support a trade to the Houston Texans, who are in a situation that they have some cap space because they're in a rookie quarterback season. And I think that would return a late 2nd round pick because I think in the 2nd round, more specifically, they have pick number 59. Okay? That would give the Chargers 2 picks between picks 59 and 69. And that's a great haul that could result in an extra player, like let's say even Chop Robinson or Jonah Ellis, right? To be selected by the Chargers in the 2nd round. Maybe they go out there, they trade Khalil Mack, and they go and get another edge rusher. That could be pretty cool. But for now, I think in this scenario, I'll say that the Chargers, they use the vet strategy. Okay, they trade Khalil Mack, they go sign an older guy like Randy Gregory or whatever to fill in for 1 season, and instead use that extra 2nd round pick, the late 2nd round pick that we get from the Texans, to get a guy like T'Vondre Sweat, defensive tackle out of Texas, right? Get some value in those early rounds, and then eventually that Randy Gregory, who's going to be a nice stand-in this year, turns into a 4th or 5th round pick next season. That's where dominoes are being set up to fall. Okay, that's where I'm at kind of right now. It's a kind of a sucky situation because I love both Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa. I do think whether it be this year or this year and next year, we're going to end up moving on from both of them at some point. But there's no reason not to take this situation and turn it into a good thing if you're the Chargers for its future. Of course, the money's going to force a lot of these actions to take place. But if you're Joe Ortiz, you're trying to make the best out of this situation. And the best thing that you can do, in my opinion, is stack draft picks. Man, that's the name of the game. Get as many draft picks in the highest rounds possible before your first season as a GM, making the calls at who the Chargers are going to be selecting at pick number 5, 69, and so on. Make the most out of that situation. by grabbing as many picks as possible and begin the lifestyle of comp picks, which the edge position is a great position to utilize that on. What I mean by that is you can get veteran corners, you can get veteran safeties, you can get veteran, maybe running backs can sometimes be okay, but you know what I mean. Like there's positions where the older you get, you still have something to offer. Maybe the drop-off isn't as dramatic. An edge feels like you can produce in your early mid-30s more than a position like corner or something like that. That's a great position to start building comp picks out, because if you can get a veteran guy like Randy Gregory or even Justin Houston to put up 4, 5, 6 sacks in a season, they're going to give you a nice comp pick in return when they move on, right? Maybe that's the case. Maybe I could be wrong in terms of the comp pick formula, if they're picked up or whatever, but from what I understand, being able to supplement that position with older guys that, maybe have a little bit more life in the tank is probably not a bad idea. And it kind of starts that whole movement for the future. So you guys let me know in the comment section below what you think. A lot of things to consider here, but it's a conversation I think it's very important for all of us to have right now. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining me. This has been The Director. We'll catch you next time. As always, bolt up, stay frosty, and hit us up with a like and sub on your way out if you did enjoy this content. Getting close to 50,000 subs. That's pretty cool, y'all. That's pretty cool.